So just jump straight to it. Is it legal to homeschool in South Africa?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Homeschooling is legal for parents. They can take their children out of school or not send them to school, and the law allows for it. And we've been doing it for over 20 years, some people, so it's definitely legal.
Okay. And then I have icebreaker questions. I just wanted that one as a teaser. So I have icebreaker questions. You're gonna choose just one, okay? Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Message or call?
Message.
Me too. Read or watch series?
Read.
Read. Okay, cool. We have two in common. I like tea, not coffee.
I actually drink both, but anyway.
Yeah. Okay, Shirley. So can you please just tell us about your homeschool journey and your motherhood journey, basically?
So I started homeschooling way back in 1997. And it was really a combination of different reasons that led us to make that choice for our child and for our family. And they've all been homeschooled since then. But mostly it was wanting to be involved with our children's education. We felt we could offer them a better academic education. We felt we could better teach them our morals and values and beliefs and, protect them from the negative aspects of peer pressure and the school system. And I think those were probably the most important reasons that we did it. So when I started, I had my stepdaughter, who was 5 or 6, was living with us, and I fell pregnant with my first child right away. And so for the first 12 years of our homeschooling journey, I was either pregnant or had a baby or a toddler. And so it was a pretty busy time, with all these
I can imagine.
in the house. And I've got 6 children of my own now. So, people often wonder, like, can you homeschool with a baby and a toddler? You definitely can.
Yeah, but it can get really crazy, hey?
It can be. And I always just say to mothers, just do the next thing. Sometimes there's 3 little crises happening in your house at the same time. I've got a baby crying and somebody spilt the milk and the phone's ringing or whatever, and you've just got to choose to do one thing at a time, do the most urgent one, and the others just have to wait. And somehow you get through those moments,
Oh, that's smart, because definitely it does happen like that. There are a lot of things happening at the same time and you just don't know what to do. So I think that's a very smart advice to give. And now I want us to talk about our country's laws, South African laws, for this show. How can, or what do homeschoolers need to do to comply with our South African constitution when it comes to homeschooling?
Okay, so I first want to give a disclaimer and say that I am not a legal advisor, so always get expert legal advice, but I can give you my opinion and I can give you some suggestions. So, there's a saying that says, all it takes for evil to prosper is for good men to do nothing. And so at the moment, we're in a situation where there's a draft bill that's pending, so the law may change. And homeschoolers have actually been fantastic at coming out in big numbers, and they've spoken at the various public forums where they could. They've submitted letters. So, as a parent, if you're new to homeschooling and you're just getting into this, you need to know that you have to be informed, you have to know the laws, and you have to know your rights and responsibilities towards your children. And what I'm saying is people have to learn to be proactive so that our freedom isn't lost, it isn't taken away from us. Because I think it's a parent's privilege and right to homeschool their children without too much interference from anybody else, because you're the expert on your own child. Even if you don't feel like an expert when you start out homeschooling, you actually are, because you've known that child probably from birth, unless it's an adopted child, their history, their health, their personalities, whether they were slow to develop, whether they were very quick to reach milestones, what they've struggled with, whether they've been very ill. So you've got all this information that's built into you. You don't even have to study to know it. And that positions you to make very good choices for your child. I think better choices than an outsider who doesn't have that whole history, just tuned into them. And
Yes, yes.
so I think, parents are the law says that parents are the primary educators of the children, and that's it. I think home education is the default form of education, and schooling is what you do if you want to delegate that responsibility to the state or to somebody else. But home education should be considered the default, not some
Okay.
privilege that we have. It's the default.
Yeah.
It's how it should be.
Yeah, and it's funny how you say that like that, because right now it seems like the default is the school, and if you homeschool now, you need to justify your action. So it's like
Yes.
opposite of what you're just saying. Okay, okay, and also thanks for sharing that. I forgot to mention that what you are sharing is based on your experience. You're not here as an expert or to advise anyone. You're just sharing your experience with us, and hopefully we'll learn from you, and then we'll take notes from you. And if people have further questions, they can leave the comments they leave their questions in the comment section, and I will put your contact details or your how people connect with you
Yes.
in the description of this video. So if someone wants to connect with you or wants to see the amazing work that you do, but you're gonna get to that later. I'm going to
Yes.
put that in the comment section. But thanks for reminding me to mention that we are just sharing your own experience. You're not here as the lawyer to advise people on what to do and what not to do. Okay, but I think you've covered what the Constitution says basically for South Africans, what you just said right now, that as a parent, you have that right to actually educate your child. And, as we're talking about that, there is this fear. Right. I share my journey online. So I'll receive like emails from people and maybe messages from Instagram and so forth. So people are concerned about this whole thing when it comes to the legal part. They don't even want to come out because they're afraid that the Department of Education will be after them. And so they don't know basically like what's right and what's wrong. Can you just talk to that? Like when it comes to the Constitution in that respect, to someone saying that I'm not sure, I hear what you're saying, but I just don't know because they will come after me, or maybe they register with the Department of Education, and now the Department of Education has this list of things that they want them to comply with, and they don't most of the time, like, because it's not school at home. So and then they feel like now they're afraid that they are doing the wrong thing.
So the Constitution says that the child's best interest are the prior consideration in all decisions pertaining to a child. And apparently, as I said, I'm not a legal expert, but I've been taught that the law assumes that parents know best unless proven otherwise in a court of law. And the onus is on the other party to prove that you, let's say you, Thanda, or me, Shirley, hasn't made the best decision for my child. And they're going to have to bring evidence to show that the child's right to basic education is not being properly realized. There would have to be evidence and reports, and there'd be an investigation. But the average homeschooling family is generally doing their best to give their children a very good education. And it would be very hard for anybody to prove that they aren't, because you would have stuff to show. We've been doing this, we've been doing that. There's photos, there's books, there's things that you use in your home. So some people even make a point of keeping records like school. I don't think it's generally necessary, because you'll easily be able to pull together what you're doing with your children using the resources that you're using if you ever needed to show. But I think to give people peace of mind, the Pestalozzi Trust is really a great organization to sign up for, so that they offer legal advice and protection to homeschooling families. And I think if you sign up as a member, you can sleep peacefully at night knowing that if the neighbor decides to report you, or somebody decides that they think you need to be checked up on, you've got a phone number that you can phone, and they'll help you to handle the situation. And most often, these kind of things just go away when people realize these homeschoolers know what they're doing and they're well informed, they know the law. And it's not like this happens all the time. In all the nearly 27 years that I've been homeschooling, I don't know of any family that's had a knock at the door and they've come to check. I've read
Yeah.
one or two situations where there was a question about families homeschooling, but often it was initiated by grandparents, or it was situations where there weren't healthy family relationships in the first place, but it didn't happen between the family and the Department of Education. It was social welfare that got involved, and that's when the homeschooling came under scrutiny. So the department, I don't think, has enough staff to go around knocking on doors to check on everybody who's homeschooling and, track down those who are still sort of in the woodwork and under the radar. So I don't think it's people mustn't make decisions out of fear. You do what's best for your child and know that what you're doing is legal, and you can show why you're doing it. And if anybody asks, you must be confident and competent and explain why you've chosen home education for your child. It's kind of simple as that, It shouldn't be a scary
No,
thing.
I like what you just said right now, that people shouldn't take decisions out of fear. That is so profound, because there are so many things that you consider before you even take a decision to homeschool a child. So if you allow that fear to just cloud your thoughts, then you might, lose or that opportunity to actually do what you've always wanted to do for your child. So I like that what you're saying, that we mustn't take decisions based on fear, and in fact, if you have that fear, it's better to educate yourself about that concern. Like, why are you concerned about that? And then
Yes.
just know or check if you are doing everything right, or if there's somewhere where you need to improve, and then you improve there, but not to stop doing it because you are afraid. I like that. I like that. And now, what options do homeschoolers have if, let's say, one parent were to pass away, or maybe parents are no longer together, and somehow the family dynamics changes, and the parents, let's just say the parents are no longer there, but there was that wish to homeschool the child. Can the child continue being homeschooled?
Well, by definition, homeschooling occurs in the child's own home, and usually it's the parents that are home educating, but it can be a grandparent, it can be a hired tutor that comes into the home, but home education happens at the child's own home. So I think that's something that all parents need to have a discussion about. And whether you're homeschooling or not, you need to talk about what would happen if I weren't here or you weren't here, or and then plan for that. But there are single parents who still home educate their children and work. So you can homeschool as a single parent. It's more challenging. There's more balls to juggle. There's more financial stress probably, but it's definitely possible. So that shouldn't stop you from making that decision. And in a few cases where I've heard of home educating families where, like, the breadwinner passed away, the community has actually shown wonderful support to that mother. And, it takes time, but you just need to get back on your feet. And if the worst case happens and your children need to go back to school, they can't be refused their education. The law says that children must get basic education. And if you're not home educating, then the government must, provide education for your child. So I think, you can't, again, let the fear of that stop you. You've got to enjoy it while you can, while everything's good.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's difficult when couples split up, especially if one parent wasn't perhaps on board about home education, or doesn't want one of the parents to stay home because of maintenance issues and finances. But those are all things that, as a family, you just have to work through. I can't give the answer to that. But there are divorced families who still home educate as well. So the important thing, actually, I think, is to keep as good a relationship with your ex as you can for the sake of the children.
Oh, nice. You mentioned that you've been homeschooling for a long time, about 2 decades. Did you homeschool all your children? And you said you have 6 kids.
Yes, so the youngest two are still being homeschooled. They're 13 and 16 now. And the others have, just finished, and some are at university, some are working. So, yeah. We've done the whole thing with a couple of the kids now. So it really helps your confidence when you've got 1 or 2 kids that have finished and they're doing all right in life as young adults. Then you realize, it takes away that worry that we all have when our kids are little. Am I doing enough? Are they going to be able to cope in the big grown-up world?
Yes,
but they do.
And I think, I really appreciate you sharing this with us, because I have 6 kids of my own, but my kids are still very young, right? So I don't know really like how life is going to be in 10 years time. So hearing stories like yours, gives that hope that, oh, okay, so they are normal kids. They will survive after they will survive after primary school. Oh, they will survive even after high school. So it is really comforting to know that, and to have someone like you who is willing to share that knowledge, because I know you share your experience and everything basically on your social media. I follow you on Instagram. So I know over there you share very insightful posts that educate us as parents, not just homeschoolers, just as individuals, and we really appreciate that. So you mentioned that one of your children or one of your child or children is in university. Is it possible for homeschool children to go to university?
Yes, I mean, all universities are open for everybody, but of course the admission requirements need to be met. So you need to have your matric, or a lot of homeschoolers do Cambridge, or they do the American GED, or there's even other options nowadays. So you just have to find a pathway that will be accepted at the institution that you want to attend. And I always say to parents, if the child knows what they want to do, look at the end goal and then work backwards to make sure that you fulfill all those requirements. Because certain courses require, like my one daughter had to submit a portfolio of artwork. Certain universities want to see non-academic achievements like community involvement or entrepreneurship, or do you know other languages or leadership. So one of them used to have a form that you had to fill in all these non-academic things. So it's good to do a little bit of research, and this kind of research your high school kids can do themselves. Make it one of their assignments, say to them, if you want to study whatever they're interested in, find the places you could study. What would they require? What would it cost? And let them do that homework. Make it a life project for them. And, and then you work towards that goal and make sure that you choose the right pathway to get there. And you can always change the plan if they change their minds. I mean, I had a child who wanted to study one thing and ended up studying something else. But you can always change your plans. It's all of life is learning. So it's good to know what your options can be.
No, that's good to hear. I saw a recent post from your page about, I think it was addressing the thing about homeschool kids, that we as parents, when it comes to high school, I don't know whether it's the fear or whatever, we decide to send our kids to school. And that is so common, People will often ask me, like, okay, so when are you going to send them to the real school?
Yes.
It's good now, they're still like a primary school, but when are you going to send them to the real school? So people feel like it can't be it's not complete. It can't be legal this way, that you keep your children, you homeschool them all the way to university. But from what you just said right now, you are telling us that it is possible, and you're even saying that the children in high school, so they are homeschooled children in high school. So you're saying children in high school, they can do their own research to see what are the requirements for whatever university that they want to further their studies in.
Absolutely, and high school isn't something that homeschooling parents should fear. I've often had them saying, well, how am I going to teach them physics or English literature or maths or whatever subject the parent fears the most? And the answer to that is that homeschool curriculum products and resources are created with the understanding that you're not an expert in teaching physics and teaching maths and teaching Shakespeare or whatever it is. So they're designed for self-study. They usually come with very good answer keys and explanations. But also, by high school level, our homeschool kids have learned to become, they've learned how to be self-motivated and to study on their own. So a lot of the times, they can just figure it out. And, I've had it with 2 or 3 of my kids with maths where they say, I'm battling with this, please can you come and help me? And then I think, it's like been 30 years since I did high school math, Then I'll sit next to them and they go through it and they explain to me what the problem is. And as they're explaining it to me, they actually figure out what they need to do. So I've never actually had to help them with those kind of things. They always seem to figure it out. And we do have a parent guide with tips if I needed it. But it's interesting that they always happen to figure it out when you just sit next to them and they're now explaining the problem. Then they find the solution. But even if they don't, the other option is that just like kids in high school, you can get extra help. So you can get your neighbor who's a physics expert to teach your child, or you can hire a tutor, or you take them to a friend. You find a solution if it's difficult. But generally, it's not as difficult as we anticipate that it's going to be.
Okay, that's very encouraging. It's very encouraging to hear. Let's go now to the BELA Bill. We've been hearing about the BELA Bill for years now. And can you just tell us what is the BELA Bill?
So the acronym BELA stands for Basic Education Laws Amendment Bill. So the government wants to add new laws and updates to the SA Schools Act. Okay. And there's quite a few changes that are in the BELA Bill that relate to schools, relate to things that don't affect us as homeschoolers, but they do affect us as citizens of our country. So it's things like, the sale of alcohol on school premises and things to do with pregnant students and language policies for schools. So you can read up on those things, but I won't spend our time on that. When it comes to home education, they have added in clauses that are going to make it possible for, or sort of require us to be monitored by them more closely. And those are the things that many homeschool representatives and experts are concerned about, because in the end, it amounts to you and me having to ask a complete stranger for permission to home educate our children. That stranger doesn't know our children and why it's in their best interests. So potentially our application could be declined by somebody who doesn't even know our child. So I think it goes against that thing about the Constitution that says the child's best interests must be of prior right and the parents are the best ones to make that decision. And the BELA Bill also is requiring regular monitoring and testing of students. And the applications in some province require a home visit by staff of the Department of Education to the child's home, which is potentially a violation of your child's right to privacy. And so there are a lot of issues with it that are problematic and that take away from our freedom. And what I've been told about the law is that any limitations on our freedom must be shown to be reasonable and justifiable. And so as homeschool representatives, myself and others have had meetings with the staff at the Department of Basic Education that are dealing with home education. And I think the struggle is that the government, the international laws that say that governments must ensure that all the children, their right to basic education is realized. So that's what the school system's there for. But now they feel that when a child's not in the school system, how do they know that we're not just locking our children in the dark ages and not educating them? And so it's finding that balance where there's government oversight. They know that our children are being educated, but they're not taking away our freedom. And so that's the struggle in all these meetings and discussions with them. And we're now waiting to see whether the bill is going to be approved by the different provinces, and then it'll carry on down this legal pathway and eventually be written into law, or it might be rejected and might not go further. We might have to go back to the drawing board, which maybe would be a good thing. So at the moment, it hasn't been passed. You don't have to abide by it because it's not law yet. It's only a draft bill. And we're just waiting to see what the outcome's going to be in the different provinces at this point, as far as I know. That's the latest update that I've had.
Okay. And you know what, when you were explaining this BELA Bill, that you have to apply that is the current system that the Department of
Yes,
Education has, that
yes,
you need to apply, and then the head of department will decide if you are granted permission to homeschool or not. And what you just mentioned, the home visits, those are things that are happening. I'm not sure if I
yes.
can have someone, who has experienced that, but those are the things that they say are happening, that if maybe you are approved, and then there will be a representative from the Department of Education who will come to your house to see if you really are doing the right thing. Isn't that what they're already doing now?
They are. I don't think they're doing it in all the provinces, but they definitely are in
Okay.
some. And their
Okay.
argument is that they want to check that your home is suitable for education. That you don't live in a cardboard box and there's no windows and no toilets and, whatever. I don't know what they imagine.
Yeah.
So that, but some people who've had home visits said, oh, it was no problem. The person came, and they were very friendly and very interested, which is great. But when a law has been passed and that is mandated, and the next person in that job is maybe not so nice,
Yeah.
then there could be
That's where I was
problems.
going, actually.
Yes, and there's nothing describing, as far as I know, what they are actually there to check and what the requirements are for the home. I don't think that's been prescribed yet. So there's a lot
Yeah.
of problem areas with all of that kind of thing. And I think, nobody comes to check, what does your kid's cupboard look like? Does he have enough clothes in it? What does the pantry look like? Do you have enough food in it? So why do they now have the right to come and check your home, and is it suitable for education? To me, that's just invading the family's privacy. So
Yeah.
if
I
there's
also wanted.
if there's a lack and neglect, then
Mm,
there are other laws like the Children's Act that
yes,
cover housing and food and education and all of that. And people can
yes.
say, this family doesn't have food or books or shelter. They can't be doing what they're doing. So I don't think we need educational officials coming to check. But that's just my opinion. Like I said, it's,
Yeah. Yes. No, no. I also wanted to raise the point that there's a lot of human factor in this thing. Because if maybe I, as an official, I was nicer, or maybe I thought the parent was nicer towards me, so the meeting might say, okay, no, it went well, because it's not clear what exactly they want to check. When they say, we talk about portfolio of evidence, what evidence? Like, what do you mean? Do you want me to be like at school, keep each and every assessment we have done, keep tests? What if we don't do tests? But there are other ways that we assess our children, of which is the case with most homeschoolers, that we don't
yes,
have formal tests. But that doesn't mean our children are not progressing. They are, and we have other means of assessing them. So, like you're saying, it's not clearly defined what is, how are they checking, and what will give a pass or a fail. So, there is a gray line there, and I think that's why most people are really uncomfortable with, with the whole thing, because it just feels like, why? Like, why? Aren't you just happy that I'm doing something? I'm providing education at home. Then the department doesn't have to worry about my child. So it's one less child for South Africa to worry about. I'll take that responsibility myself. But yeah, no, thanks for sharing that insight on the bill. Can you just maybe tell us, as homeschoolers or as South Africans, what do we do? Do we just wait um, and see what will come out from this bill, or is there anything that South Africans can do, whether positively or negatively, whether we want it to pass or we want it to fail? Like, is there anything that we can do as citizens?
well, as I said, up until this point, the homeschooling community has really been very proactive. So whenever there were opportunities to submit letters or to go and give oral representations, they did. I think that process has now come to a close. So I don't think there'll be more opportunities for that going forward, unless it's rejected and they start over, and then it all starts from the beginning again. But
Okay.
it's just good to be informed and to stay connected with the people who are actively monitoring those things, and to participate whenever you get the opportunity, because
Yeah.
as a community, what we are doing by speaking out protects the freedom of education for all future homeschoolers as well. And
Yes.
I think,
Yes.
we've all got to do our part.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you. Even this, you sharing your experience is helping not just us, but future. You know, I was looking at this as I was planning this season of interviews, and I was thinking to myself that I'm doing this even for my children. If they want to homeschool in future and they have questions, you know, there are those videos that mommy did. Let's just watch them and hear what people in the olden days used to do.
Yes.
So I think it's very, it's more of like a support group, you know, even what we're doing now. Because if you have knowledge about something, you will know what to say, you know how to respond, you know how to act, you know what to do, how to do the right thing. So what you are sharing, I truly appreciate, and I believe even the people who will be watching this video will also appreciate that. Now, if we were to go back now, if you were to go back, you say you've been homeschooling for more than 20 years. If you were to go back to raise your children all over again, you know, like from young age, what would you do differently? Like, what are some of the things that you would do more of, and some of the things that you will just eliminate or do less of in your life?
I think I'd be more relaxed, because with hindsight now, I know that this process works. You know, the kids turn out okay.
Yeah.
They're not perfect. No children are perfect.
Yeah.
But, you know, they can get jobs. They can read. They can write. They can pass exams if they want to. They can function as young adults. So, and socially they're okay. And, you know, they're just normal people like other people.
Yeah.
So I think you get that confidence over time. I think the first few years I was a lot more stressed and doing more school at home, like finishing every page in the book, because I was worried that what if somebody came to check, you know? And nowadays I'm more relaxed. I mean, look, in subjects like maths, you've got to do it layer by layer, step by step. But, you know, for example, in our home this week, we've been doing a lot of renovations and maintenance on our home, and the kids have been involved and helping with that. So we haven't done as much book work as before. Back then, I would have been stressing. We've missed days of school. And now I'm like, no, we're learning these skills. They now are learning to use these tools and do these kind of tasks. And they need to learn this when they have a home of their own one day. And so now I see things differently, that not all learning comes from books. All of life is learning. And we learn from the work that we do in the real adult world, not just from textbooks. And I think the penny took many years to drop before I came to that conclusion. So I would change that.
Yeah. What you're saying, I'm just thinking, looking at myself. When we started homeschooling, my twins were in grade 1. I remember there was a point where I would want them to raise their hands in order for them to speak, you know, when you're doing a class. Because I was just thinking, you know, when everything is overwhelming, and I was trying to adopt things that I done at school to my house, you know, and it did not work. It doesn't work because I'm not their teacher. I'm still their mom, you know, and I need to find another way to deal with certain situations. But we can't take school and we can't do school at home, basically. So we need to find a way to actually at our home without trying to imitate what school is doing. I like that. So you'll be more relaxed. I like that. So we must relax. We must relax. Okay. Sheila, it's been amazing chatting with you. I really appreciate your time and your wisdom you've shared with us. And so if people want to connect with you, how do they connect with you?
As I said in our little icebreaker conversation, I prefer messaging. So they can send me an email, because that means I can respond in my own time when it suits me. And I'll send you the link to the websites that I run as well, because there's lots of useful information there that people might like, answers to frequently asked questions and articles to encourage you on particular issues. So I'll send you that as well to share.
No, thank you so much. No, I'll definitely link that. I've seen your website. It has a lot of information. Even the questions that we're talking about now, they are answered, some of them in detail in there. And of which we really appreciate. Because when you're getting started, it's, especially for us South Africans, I'm speaking for myself, when I was getting started, I didn't know much about homeschooling because I didn't know anyone around me who was doing it. So I only saw it on the screen, and unfortunately, I saw it on the screen from people from other countries, so not from our country even. So your website and even your social media platforms, they share lots of local information, something that we can relate to and really appreciate it. I'll definitely leave the links in the description box. Shirley, thank you so much. It's been nice talking to you. If we have questions or if anyone has questions, they're going to leave them in the comment section. And please accept my invite in future if we need you back on the show. Thank you so much for your time.
Definitely. Thank you, Thanda. It was lovely chatting.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.